With the amount of injuries that we're seeing at the running back position and bye weeks, by the way, it's really never been more important than for me to wait until Saturday to go through every matchup to find the must start and sit running backs for any week of fantasy football, and that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm one of the only fantasy YouTubers who's working on a Saturday to get you this kind of content to help you win. So please go down there and drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, getting into our first matchup here, it's a little tricky with this overseas game, the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns. I would definitely say Quinshon Judkins is on the border of must start, but I ended up just making him a high-end flex option instead because I've said that throughout the week. I think that it's going to be tricky to see the Cleveland Browns doing much offensively in this game against an aggressive defense with Brian Flores and an offense that has a new quarterback now, Dylan Gabriel, who I really don't see pushing the ball down the field too much. Now, Quinshon Judkins looks spectacular so far and against really good defenses, by the way, the past 2 weeks. So it's hard to see Judkins not do good at this point, considering how good he's looked. But I'm going to refrain from keeping him in must-start territory this week and just put him as a high-end flex option who I would play probably 90% of the time. And then Jordan Mason, I would play Quinshon over him. Not to say that Jordan Mason can't be good. I mean, we saw it against the Bengals. He has lots of ability, and I do think this Browns matchup could, in theory, be really good. But I've said this throughout the weeks. I think the Browns defense is either pretty good or way over their head. So we'll find out a lot in this game for sure, but I will play Jordan Mason as a high-end flex option as well. And Xavier Scott, I will say, is involved. So if you need deep options this week, Xavier Scott of the Minnesota Vikings can be played. And you don't play any of the other Cleveland backs, Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. They've been tossed to the side for the workhorse, Quinshon Judkins. The Dallas Cowboys at the New York Jets is our next matchup. This one has a high over-under, and I think there's going to be a lot of points. Javonte Williams needs to be in your lineup at this point. I was late to the breakout party, but I'm here now. It's legit, and the Jets defense isn't very good. Breece Hall, in theory, actually could do well this week. In theory, because this matchup is amazing with the Cowboys defense, and he has no more Braylon Allen looking over his shoulders. Now, I do think Isaiah Davis is playable, but a low-end play that I don't think impacts Breece that much. So I could see Breece having an efficient game. I'm going to keep him as a high-end flex option right here. And what I would also play over Jaden Blue, who I think is one to watch this week, would not say that he's a high-end play, but again, if you're super desperate this week, I think is a possible play if you just desperately need someone to provide you some upside, because Miles Sanders, it looks like he's either going to be injured in playing or not playing at all as of the time of this filming. So I would say Jaden Blue, very low-end flex, but someone to watch this week for sure. The New York Giants at the New Orleans Saints is our next matchup, and no must-starts in this one. Cam Scatterbo, again, very high-end flex option, much like Quinshon Judkins. I would play him in probably 90 to 85% of leagues this week, but I'm not going to say he's a must-start because I think the Giants' offense is going to look very interesting this week against a New Orleans Saints defense that is definitely beatable, but at the same time, without Malik Neighbors, that offense will be one-dimensional. So I do see Cam Scatterbo probably having less efficiency in this game, but the volume that he's getting is absolutely there. And Alvin Kamara is not as good of a play as Cam Scatterbo right now. We haven't seen the pass-catching involvement this year that we've been used to seeing, and that's the troubling issue. Because if you look at his numbers on the ground, he's actually been really efficient, but the problem is that this offense just isn't good enough to continue to get him a lot of scoring opportunities. So he really needs those pass-catching upside for it to be a worthwhile play and a must-start option. He's not getting enough for him to be a must-start or someone who's playable over Cam Scatterbo, who just has a little bit more juice at this point of his career. Kendre Miller, low-end play, but someone you could consider based off the volume he's been getting. And then the other Giants running backs, Devin Singletary is not worth a play, and Tyron Tracy's doubtful, meaning he won't play, but definitely a name to watch over the next couple of weeks. The Las Vegas Raiders at the Indianapolis Colts is very simple. You just go with Jonathan Taylor, and you go with someone like Ashton Genty, who I consider is on that fringe of must-start, but I ended up making a must-start because he's a really tremendous player. And then you don't play anybody else in this matchup. Our next matchup is the Miami Dolphins at the Carolina Panthers, and I would say this one's relatively similar as well. You play Devon Achane without any question, and Rico Dowdle is not a must-start. Everybody's been asking me where I rank him this week. He's inside the top 30. If you have access to my full top 200 rankings on a weekly basis on FS Roundup as a premium customer, you know exactly where he's ranked right now, inside the top 30, meaning that I don't consider him a must-start, but he's obviously a decent flex play because of the fact that he's on an offense that has no other options outside of Ted McMillan, and they're playing a bad defense. He's a solid play, but I will say this, Trevor Etienne, I expect to get some work in this game. I would be shocked if Rico Dowdle is the lead back by everything and gets like 95% of the work. I think it could be an 80-20 split, maybe a 70-30 split between him and Trevor Etienne. So if you need a shot of life, maybe a touchdown upside game, I think Trevor Etienne can be played over the other running backs in Miami. I don't think Ollie Gordon is worth much consideration at this point. It did not happen the way I thought as far as having a breakout game last week against the New York Jets. He's just not involved enough. The Denver Broncos at the Philadelphia Eagles is an interesting one as well. Saquon Barkley hasn't been that good, but I still consider him a must-start because of the volume that he's getting and because of the upside that we know he has as a player, being able to break something off at any time. It hasn't happened this year, but I don't put it past him to be able to do it. And especially with the red zone upside that they get on a weekly basis, he still is a must-start guy. J.K. Dobbins is still a play over RJ Harvey. He just really is. I mean, listen, the reality with this one is that J.K. Dobbins is the lead back in this one still. And yes, last week RJ Harvey had a breakout party, but this matchup is not good, number one, versus Philly. And I think if push comes to shove in a closer matchup, J.K. Dobbins will continue to be that lead back in Denver. So I don't think that this is a week where RJ Harvey is going to duplicate what he did last week. I mean, because they blew out the Bengals. What did you expect to take away from that game? This will not be a blowout. If anything, Philadelphia blows out Denver, but I don't think they will. I think it'll be close, and I think J.K. Dobbins will definitely lead the charge as a high-end flex option in this matchup, but RJ is a mid-end flex option because of the upside that we've seen from RJ Harvey. And you don't know what's going on in Philadelphia's backfield behind Saquon, so just stay away from all of them. The Houston Texans at the Baltimore Ravens. This is our first stretch of really tough decisions here. Derrick Henry is no longer a must-start. I consider him a high-end flex play because especially if the Texans don't jump out to an early lead and it's close for the majority of the game, I could see Henry having a good game. I could, but I'm not going to say he's must start because this team just is weaker right now with injuries, and Henry clearly is having some sort of like confidence issues with this fumble issue right now. So I just don't see them being this like tremendous play. Derrick Henry, I think that he could be good, but I'm not saying he's a must start right now. And I would play Woody Marks over Nick Chubb. Listen, I have expressed doubts. I do think Nick Chubb will be involved in this game because I just find it hard to believe the Texans phase him out entirely, but I would take the upside of Woody Marks if this is going to be a split backfield. I think the Ravens matchup is obviously one you could take advantage of, and I think if it's going to be a split backfield, Woody Marks is the guy that you want. And Justice Hill, I will say this, don't chase points on this one. Last week, it was an extraordinarily efficient game on very little volume, but he is playable just because they do use him in the passing game and sometimes in the rushing game as well. So playable, not an ideal play whatsoever. Very low flex option in that Jaden Blue category. But I got to tell you, this Houston backfield is going to be really, really interesting to watch. I will play Woody Marks over Nick Chubb, but I will say that it's not that far off as many people might think. The Tennessee Titans at the Arizona Cardinals is our next matchup here, and there's no must-starts. It's a very interesting backfield in both ways now because Tyjae Spears is making his return to this Tennessee Titans offense. Now, I'm going to put him on the bench for now, let him see what he does the first week back. I don't think there will be too much involvement, so Pollard hasn't moved in my rankings, and maybe he moves a spot at some point tonight. I don't think he will end up moving, though. And then I think Amari DiMercato is the better play over Michael Carter, but it's very, very close. Michael Carter has risen up in my rankings. You can see that reflected on FSRoundup.com. And I do think that Amari DiMercato is the better pass-catching option. And that's the reason I like him more than Carter, because I don't see Carter as a really good running back, even though this matchup, in theory, they could take advantage of a ground game attack when they're beating the Titans really bad at some point in the third or fourth quarter. I just think that Kyler Murray's upside with running backs as pass catchers is too much for me to put him over Michael Carter. But again, I could be really wrong on this. I'm very curious to see the results of polls on this question. Amari DiMercato versus Michael Carter. There's actually a couple of those out there this week already, and it's completely free to vote and completely free to start your own poll on fsroundup.com right now. Completely free to do this. Get live feedback and results from the rest of the community and help people out as well with their start-sit decisions. Completely free on FS Roundup, but if you want a full team breakdown from me to utilize the waiver wire tool and to utilize my rankings on a weekly basis as well, that is for premium customers only who sign up for the premium subscription on fsroundup.com.
This is Ted. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season.
Now, in our next matchup here, the Tampa Bay Bucs and Seattle Seahawks, another tough one. I don't think this is clear-cut with either team. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, that's a split backfield. It's very, very split. All you have to do is look at the numbers on fsroundup.com, completely free. It's a split backfield. That being said, it's similar to the Houston situation where if it is a split backfield, I'll take the more talented back with Kenneth Walker. So yes, I'll clearly play him over Zach Charbonnet, but Rachaad White is a guy that I would play over Zach Charbonnet and over Sean Tucker. It's similar to the Arizona backfield where both will be involved. But I see the Bucs actually potentially losing this game and utilizing more of a pass-catching back more than they would a running back. So I'll take the one with pass-catching upside, Rachaad White, over Sean Tucker, who will absolutely probably out-carry Rachaad White in this game, but I expect Rachaad White to get work in the carry department as well. So I think that Rachaad White's pass-catching upside brings him over the top of Sean Tucker in this game. Again, very interesting polls to put on FS Roundup right now to see the rest of the community's opinions on this one. Another easy one, the Detroit Lions and the Cincinnati Bengals. Play Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously, and I would play David Montgomery over Chase Brown. The way I look at this is even if David Montgomery gets 10 carries in this game, they're better than 15 to 20 carries from Chase Brown and the Bengals offense. They can't run the ball at all. It's a better offense by a million times with the Detroit Lions. I'd rather take that upside and play him over someone who gets bad volume. That's the way I look at this one, and it's very simple beyond that. The Washington Commanders at the Los Angeles Chargers is our next matchup, and the way I see it, Amari and Hampton is clearly must start, but the other way I see it, and I've said this over the week with the backfield of Washington, I would rather play Bill Krosky still over Chris Rodriguez because it is a split backfield. Whenever we see split backfields like this, true splits, which Washington really is right now, I'll take the more talented guy over the guy that is getting volume but just not as talented. And that's what we're seeing right now with Washington. I'll take Bill Krosky over Chris Rodriguez pretty easily. And Jeremy McNichols is definitely behind Chris Rodriguez pretty easily as well because all he really gets is the pass-catching upside. And the Commanders' backfield beyond Amari and Hampton is not something you want to mess with. The New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills are Sunday night game. James Cook is clearly must start. And I look at this backfield in New England very similar to what I've been discussing with all these other backfields. When it's split, give me the more talented guy. Now, I will say this. Everybody who thinks TreVeyon Henderson is about to get more volume, maybe you're right. But the way I see it, and I'll be completely honest here, I know it's a very unpopular thing to say, he hasn't looked that good. Like, if you actually look at TreVeyon Henderson on a per-touch basis, what have you really seen outside of the preseason? It's not been that good. If I was the coach in New England, I would still utilize Ramondre Stevenson as well. So it's hard for me to blame what they're doing, and for that reason, I don't see Ramondre that much worse of a player than TreVeyon Henderson still. I would prefer TreVeyon. I want that explosive upside, which I know he has. We haven't seen it yet, so I will still play Ramondre Stevenson, not that far behind TreVeyon Henderson. And I wouldn't play Antonio Gibson. There's just not enough there, and he's just not that good of a player at this point of his career to where I don't think it matters, even if he gets volume. And the last matchup, the Monday night game, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Jacksonville Jags. messy backfield. Travis Etienne obviously is the best play of the bunch. High-end flex option, but not a must-start because I've said this over and over again this week. I think the Jags get exposed in this game. And I think that we see the Chiefs' defense look really good. So I think there's a world where Etienne doesn't have as good of a game. That being said, they've been really efficient offensively. Etienne's looked really good with Liam Cohen as his coach. So obviously he's the best play. But Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, honestly, take your pick. I think they're both playable to a certain degree, but neither one of them is a great play. And the reason I prefer Kareem Hunt over Pacheco is because he gets the goal line work. But it's really that simple. Neither of them are very good plays. For that reason, I would say keep an eye on Brashard Smith. Keep an eye on him this week. I would not be surprised if we started to see him get more opportunities and more involvement with the Chiefs offense. But as of right now, there's just no way I'm playing him out of that Chiefs backfield. And then I would say Bashal Tutin, keep an eye on the injury as of the time of this filming. He's still questionable, has been limited to practice the first 2 days. As of the time of this filming, we don't have correct word yet and definitive word yet, but I would say if he plays, he's also a playable asset as well below the Chiefs backfield. So let me know what your running back room looks like heading into Week 5 fantasy football. And if you want to see the full top 30 running backs this week, click on this video right here.